Welcome to the Breakthrough Podcast. Today I have a very special guest. It's the third time I've had him on my podcast. His name is Chase Hughes. The last time we did this, by the way, it got millions and millions of views. Different shorts have gotten 5 million views, 10 million views, just segments of Chase's knowledge. Chase has, since our first podcast, blown up to have over 1 million subscribers on one of his YouTube channels, almost 200,000 on the next, and had hundreds of millions of views since then as well on his own long-form content. He's become one of the most famous people in the world. He's a best-selling author over the last, 7 years in the mindset, hypnosis, niche. Yeah. And he's just one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. He's one of my favorite friends, and I would even say one of my mentors, especially in body language. There's very few people I think have taught me a lot, and Chase is probably, in my opinion, the best at what he does. So in this interview, in this podcast, we're going to structure a little bit different in the sense that normally when you have a podcast and you're asking expert questions, we'll take two doctors, for example, a regular doctor. If you were to sit down across from a doctor and ask them questions, the depth of the questions you can ask only goes so far because your expertise is lacking in order to ask certain questions. Because I'm an expert in this field, I want to translate my expertise into the questions and knowledge that I want to translate over to you and be able to take the most advanced material and the most depth of an interview I believe Chase has probably ever done. So I want to be able to extract as much information from him as possible in the best way possible for those of you watching. And that's the goal. So Chase, welcome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
So let me ask you this, because I want to start the podcast off with a bang. You know, a lot of people don't really know the value of understanding the human mind, persuasion, psychology. I'm 26. I've seen a lot of value in mastering this skill set. What would you say are the maybe 2 or 3 biggest takeaways of being able to master persuasion, the mind, and human behavior, understanding how to read people, pretty much your skill set? What would you say are the 3 biggest takeaways that someone could have from developing this skill set?
The biggest takeaway for any of this is we're in a world right now full of AI. It's uncertain. Are they going to take our jobs? Is it going to revolutionize what's going on? You go back since the dawn of recorded history. Human behavior skills dictate who is on top. They dictate success no matter what. And this is since we started recording human history. Human behavior skills are what matters. And some AI is not going to take that away. We went through the same thing with the Industrial Revolution, and we went through the same thing when computers were invented. So it's just another iteration. And this is no exception. Understanding the person that you're speaking to is the most powerful tool that you can ever have in the world. Whether you're a parent, a leader, a drill sergeant, a military commander, doesn't matter who you are. Just understanding who you're speaking to changes everything.
So let's simplify it. I love simplicity. What would you say is the most basic framework that the average person, not that high confidence, maybe not even that high in IQ, right? Not to be offensive to anybody or anything like that. Just, I'm going to try and make this the simplest you'd possibly do.
Yep.
How would you explain to that person in the most generic, let's say you had one framework you could follow for the rest of your life. What is that framework to get someone to go from point A to point B in terms of influencing them in general? Whether you can use it in sales, you can use it in just regular dating or attraction, you're going to use it in your day-to-day trying to get a discount on a car wash or negotiation. What is the most generic, simple framework you could possibly have?
Okay, first is the person I'm talking to, I need to understand them. And the most basic way is, are they an open person or are they a closed person? So like I was in psychology in college. One of my professors said the most profound thing I've ever heard. You're only going to see 2 types of patients as a psychologist. You'll see some that need loosening and some that need tightening. So I'd get a general idea of who I'm speaking to. And all I'm going to do from there is make the decision I need them to make. How will I make it make sense with the tribe socially? So how will I make it a socially acceptable decision? How will I minimize the consequences in my communication? And how will I project that decision-making onto someone else? Like, it's not really your fault for not knowing this. It's not your fault for not having done this before. That's the most basic framework.
And if I follow that framework and I master that one framework, how far do you think it could take me?
Mastering it's the key. So a lot of people will understand it. They'll stick it on a Post-it note. They'll put it on a bathroom mirror or something like that. They'll write it on the wall. And they'll say, I understand this framework. Understanding it doesn't mean anything. As you well know, doing it and getting feedback is what's most important. I'm going to use it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to use it. I'm going to get better. And that's how you master the framework, not by like studying it and just getting down into all these little details. It's, I'm going to take this framework today, and you're going to use this today to start doing some of these things. And you start mastering it by actually doing it.
If you were to give yourself credit, because you're pretty humble, what would you say you're the best in the world at doing? Like, what do you, if someone came to you, if anything, do you think you're the best in the world at anything that you do?
I think it would be developing systems of getting someone to do something that's maybe not in their best interest, which sounds weird. Let me put an asterisk on this. And what I mean is, in interrogations, confessing to a crime or providing intelligence or whatever is not in that person's best interest to confess, and say, oh yeah, I robbed the liquor store or whatever. So that's been my bread and butter my whole life. I've been obsessed with how can I get someone in the shortest amount of time to do something that they would never normally do.
And in that case, does it only apply to interrogation, or does it apply to behavior as well?
It's all behavior, all human beings. So people say, oh, well, you study interrogation. There's no such thing. These are human to human skills. Somebody says, oh, I'm in B2C sales, business to consumer, or I'm in B2B, I'm business to business. There's no such thing. Somebody says, oh, I've studied trial psychology or jury psychology. There's no such thing. All of it is H to H. It's human to human. And you have to get good at that human element of understanding people and then getting them to make decisions that they normally would not.
So let's backtrack. What was the reason you found motivating? Because someone watching this might be like, okay, cool, but what made you want to figure out how to get someone to do that? What was your, oh, here's why I'm going to go obsessed with this?
You want the backstory here.
I want to know what made you, you.
I was probably 17 or 18. I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And I go to a bar one evening. It's called Kelly O'Neill's. I think it's still there on Lure Street in Waikiki Beach. And I asked somebody to essentially just go out on a date with me. And it's burned into my head where she said, no thanks. And like that little phrase just like lodged into my brain where I faced this rejection and it hurt. And I went home and I typed into Google how to tell when girls like you. And I just wanted to know, like, can I be safe enough not to face some kind of rejection? And I went down this rabbit hole trying to understand women, not understanding that it was humans. I was trying to understand it's not about just women, it's human beings. And about this time, I started reading all this persuasion and body language and all this stuff. I got obsessed with this pickup stuff, and I was a child, pretty much. I was still a 19, 20-year-old. And I got obsessed with that, and a friend of mine got killed in a terrorist attack on USS Cole. His name's Craig Weberly. And I thought the intelligence people could be using a lot of these techniques. And I thought surely the government, these government agencies have the best training in the world. They have the most advanced training in the world. And and then I started going to some of these trainings, and I saw this is no higher than how to win friends and influence people. That was the top. That's the top. These are like secret agents getting trained and like look people in the eye, use their name, firm handshake. That's the training that they got. I was blown away. So some of this stuff I was studying about like just basic persuasion stuff was higher than the stuff that the CIA was using. And my mind was blown. But I got obsessed with it mostly because you start seeing the world through this behavior profiling lens and you realize those are the people that are on top. You never, like if you go to a Fortune 500 company and you look at the top sales guy in that entire company, you're never going to see that top sales guy go, well, thanks to neuro-linguistic programming or thanks to this handshake technique or thanks to this script, I'm the best salesperson in the world. It's the human skills that make all that happen. It's the human skills that make the leaders of Fortune 500 companies, and there's no exception to that rule.
It's funny. My my origin is also getting rejected by a girl I was in love with, and I want to figure out how girls think.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck do women think? And
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know anyone in the world better than you or me in this field. Now, my audience knows that. Someone coming from your audience may not know that. But, end of the day, it's funny that motivator is the common denominator to get someone to want to obsess over the skill set.
You know why? This is my opinion, but when you hear people say public speaking is higher on the fear list than death for a lot of people. It's not public speaking that they fear, it's the rejection. I'm going to get rejected in front of people. So like that rejection's kind of a heart wound that makes us like, I'm never going to let this happen again. And I think that's the genesis for a lot of people that kind of get into this. But learning those skills is so critical. And let's go into a couple of skills. What do you want to talk about?
So let's start with this. You talked about, because I'll give you my perspective and maybe this translates over to the people watching. My biggest motivator initially was to figure out if someone likes me the same.
Yeah.
And then initially it was like, oh, is there a line you could say? Found out there wasn't. And I was like, well, is there a behavior you could have? There was confidence. But more importantly, it was like, well, what's the body language of someone who likes you, both male and female? What are the signs that someone, because I think a lot of people don't know this, but human beings can be deceptive even to themselves. I've had it where I'll talk to someone and everything on the surface looks like they don't like me, they're mad at me, they're unhappy with me, but they're extremely attracted to me and they do like me a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get confused because they buy into the mask, not to the reality, and they can't see through. I think you do a really good job at seeing through that. So let's just take basic signs for a male, because 80% or 70% of my audience is male, 30% is female. But let's start with the female side, right? How do you know a girl is attracted to you? And then we'll move into business.
Number one way is, do they blink less often when you talk? Is their blink rate slowing down? So when we say blink rate, this is how often we're blinking. The average blink rate is between 15 to 18 in a normal conversation. And when somebody is really focused on someone else, you're going to see their pupils dilate almost all the time. And you've probably seen that many times. And you're going to see that blink rate start going down. They're going to blink less and less often. And a lot of people think, well, I'm going to have to count how often somebody's blinking. And you can, like if you want to be like a super nerd about it, I did. I spent years thinking that I needed all this data and these numbers because it's girls. It was girls. So just watching that blink rate start to fall, that's all you're really looking for, a change. So like I start a conversation, are they blinking fast or slow? And then check in a few seconds later, is it speeding up, slowing down? That's the number one. I would say number two are vital organs being exposed, like arteries. So when we
Moving
don't
your
like
hair
somebody,
backwards, covering your neck, stuff like that.
yeah, putting the hair back, exposing the carotid artery, arms coming out in conversations where these brachial arteries are being exposed down here, the femoral arteries, and you're seeing a lack of protective
What would that
gestures.
look like down there? Femoral arteries, like what does it look like when you expose that?
Legs together, or femoral arteries being exposed is someone leaning back and not protecting. The most
So
important
relaxing,
thing,
just like becoming, no, I'm kidding.
oh yeah. So in reality, the most important thing that most people tend to ignore is the belly. This whole belly area that we have. We don't have any bones to protect any of these organs down here. So what we're going to see is somebody's around us that we're threatened by, that we're not really attracted to, we'll start getting into this protective mode. We'll bring the rib cage down toward the pelvis to start protecting these organs that are down here. And you can just, if you look at a YouTube clip of, let's say like a Sean Ryan podcast, and you grab that little dot and you slide it to the right and to the left over the course of half an hour, you can watch someone collapsing or opening and watch progressively. Are they getting more confident or are they getting less confident throughout an interview? Just doing that little sliding thing. And what I've just said is equal for men and women. And one of the biggest, like I thought, just like you, like there was a line. Like one of these days I'm going to find the perfect line. I'm going to find the perfect paragraph to make everything happen. And I even wrote a little book for myself about this, like a little training manual, like here's how to like talk to girls, how to talk to women. And I showed it to my mentor. I showed a stack of 3 or 4 books. The Game had just come out by Neil Strauss.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed it to my mentor, and that I was shattered. From that day forward, I was shattered. All of those beliefs. He said, flip to any page in that book, any page in any one of those books, and I will positively show you how every technique that you're learning is how to fake like you are a real man or like you have your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's no way. And you flip through the book, that's all it was. I'm going to trick someone into thinking that I have my shit together. And that's all of that. I was learning all of these tricks to trick another human brain into thinking that I'm a good person, or that I'm a man, or that I've got my life figured out. Or most of all, I think the biggest problem for most people, and I'm going off on a huge tangent here, they don't know themselves. And they spend so much time up until they're 50 or 60. I have clients that are this age trying to find out who they are. Just kind of trying on these little costumes of identity to see which one feels right. And they go through this process of trying to discover themselves and never really dig and never really figure out what's going on. I can just learn these few tricks, then I can fake people into thinking that I've got my shit figured out.
And, in that regard, let's flip the script. Because a lot of men don't even know what they're doing when they show interest. Women can tell, I think, a lot better than men when a guy's interested in her. Obviously, She also has a lot more experience because the average, they did a study on Tinder, and they took what men voted as the least attractive female, and they compared it to what women voted as the most attractive male, and they had equal swipes. How many more matches do you think the ugliest female had over the male?
Double?
10x.
10x.
10 times more matches. The most attractive male had 10 times less matches than the least attractive female.
Wow.
So they get more experience, obviously, and they get more times at bat knowing, hey, a guy does this, he's going to approach me. But what are the biggest tell signs? Not that he's attracted to you or he's going to come up to you, because I think women already know that. What's the biggest sign he's genuinely interested in being with you? That's, I think, something I think a lot of women would be interested in knowing.
Okay, 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is facial expressions.
What kinds of facial expressions?
Let's dig into it.
Okay.
So let's say you're talking to a guy, and I'm speaking to women right now. You're talking to a guy and you say something exciting, and as you're talking about something that excites you, that you're happy about, shows on your face, you should see that reflecting on his face. And he should show some of those mirroring reactions. If I'm talking about, oh, my aunt just got put in the hospital or something like that, and I'm saying something that's not right, that guy's face should reflect that. He should genuinely be interested in you and how you're feeling. And if he is, then you're going to see an echo of that facial expression. You'll see concern on his face. This muscle right here is called the glabella. And you'll see this when somebody's feeling some of that matching of grief, some kind of grief. And the other grief expression is right here. This is called the chin boss muscle. So if you're sharing something vulnerable, you're going to see like this little muscle start to reflect.
And that's hard to fake, right?
Very hard to fake.
Yep.
And the second is you're going to see a lot more eyebrow raises, especially if a male's attracted to you. Even if he's pretending not to be attracted to you, while he's speaking, he'll be doing this a lot more.
And what does that mean? Does that mean he's looking for validation or reassurance? What does that mean, that eyebrow raise?
So I tend to just generically call it a need for acceptance. I'm going to need some kind of approval or a nod from the other person so that there's a social connection. So our forehead is like the billboard for emotions. This is how we display our emotions. So all of this anger, the smiling, happiness, openness like this with the eyebrow flash, well, you can read most facial expressions just from the forehead up. You can tell how a person feels. So you're definitely going to see a lot more of this. And we do more of this eyebrow raised behavior when we want to seek some kind of relationship and understanding with other people.
So if a guy's not doing that, he's less interested in the girl, or at least a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And then what about eye contact or blink rate for a male?
It'll be exactly the same. The blink rate will go down.
If he's attracted.
Yeah, so if you're the woman here, while you're talking to the guy, the blink rate, he should start blinking less often. The more he likes you, the less often you're going to see blinks. And when somebody's really interested, their blink rate's down to like 3 or 4 a minute. And stress is what increases our blink rate.
So what if a guy likes you, but he's nervous around you?
Then you're going to see nervousness. You'll see stress, but you'll still see those emotional indicators on the face. You'll still see the eyebrow flash.
And in that context, he might blink faster, but still be interested.
Right, but you'll still see the emotional echo on that face. I say something exciting, I see excitement on his face. I say something that's a little sad, I see sadness on his face.
Now, what's the biggest indicator that a guy's serious, right? A lot of girls are like, hey, is this male serious? How does a girl know right off the bat that the guy could have serious intention? Because the same guy who could be serious, there's a guy who is never serious, there's a guy who only wants to be serious, and there's a guy who is looking for something serious, but he's not desperate to be serious. What do I do if I'm a woman and I want to only talk to men who have the potential and capacity to be serious, or are only looking to be serious?
Yeah. Two things here. Is he reacting to me all the time, or is he acting on his own? If he's acting on his own, he's more likely to be serious, so he's not trying to get some immediate gratification. Number two, is he more willing, if I'm the girl or the woman?
So you would say, to translate that one segment,
Yeah.
a male looking for her validation to get an immediate gratification is also a male who's probably less confident or doing it for his own amusement.
And more reactive to her.
So he's in her frame.
Yeah.
So do you think women biologically already are less turned on to that? Because some women are programmed to go for the wrong guy every time.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the biggest flag, that he's reactive to you? Because a lot of women think that, oh, the guy who's not reactive to you is the dangerous guy. I always say it's the guy who can have anyone and decides to be with you. That's the guy you should go for.
Yeah, and I say this to my wife all the time, like, I love you more than I need you. And that's exactly what it should feel like. Like, they love you more than they need you. The second piece of this would be, if you're just meeting some guy, if I'm coaching a woman, I have to make her say in her head, is he more okay with me? Or is he more okay than I am with not having sex? Is he more okay than I am with not having sex?
And if he is, what does that mean?
That's A, it's probably a high value person, but B, they're not going for some kind of instant gratification. They're more okay than she is.
So they're not just here to talk to you because they want to fuck you. They're here to talk to you because they genuinely want to get to know you.
To talk to you, yeah.
And then,
so one thing I've noticed is, can we use, oh, that's a button. I thought I was sitting on my microphone. One thing I've noticed throughout this pickup community, especially when I was younger, and I bought into this mindset for at least a year and a half, is that these guys viewed women as an obstacle to their own genitalia. Process that for a second. Like, they viewed a woman as an obstacle to overcome in order to get to the genitalia.
and to translate what that means to someone watching is simply the intention most of the guys in the community have is not to get to know you. It's just to get another trophy. So another lay, like fucking is the intention.
Yeah.
I think what differentiated my self-confidence was that I was walking up to women at 15 years old, getting phone numbers, 8 hours a day, every day at the mall. That's all I did. I didn't lose my virginity till I was 17 because my goal was never to go lose my virginity. My goal was never to lay with a girl. My goal was simply to build my confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I became so much better than the average guy, because if your goal is only to get laid, then your mind you can't think clear. You're not working on yourself. You're just simply acting on lines.
It's so true. And I think you were higher value because you were working on yourself and you prioritized your goals over someone else's
I don't remember one of the girls.
obstacle.
One of the girls I don't remember. I don't remember when I get rejected. I don't remember the ones that said yes. I
Yeah.
just remember how I would feel. I could recall almost every day I was at the mall, how I would feel going home. I would remember my experience, feeling like a champion, feeling like I'm facing my biggest fear. And eventually I felt so confident.
And you were fat, right? Weren't you fat?
I was fat at 13. I lost 24 pounds in 1 month to get a girl I liked. Some fat guy went up to her, asked her out. She said yes. I said, okay, it's not good looks. It's not fame. It's not money. What is it? I realized it's confidence. I'm like, oh, confidence is the one variable? Oh, when I worked on my confidence. And how did I work on my confidence? I faced my biggest fear over and over and over again until it didn't bother me anymore.
Yeah.
Fear of rejection to me is like, I want to laugh thinking about it because it's just so foreign. It's so far away.
Yeah.
It's been over a decade now. I'm 26. I would say ridiculously confident for 11 years. But, anyone watching this, male or female, if you could face your insecurities, like a lot of people are, let's say they're fat, they're insecure, they're fat. We know you're fat. It's pretty apparent. So what are you hiding? Oh, I'm fat, I'm wearing my shirt. I know you're putting your shirt over your fat because you don't want to go swimming with us, but we know you're fat with your shirt on and without your shirt on. You know what I mean? Like, what are you hiding? So it's just facing the reality of your insecurities. That's how you deal with it.
And other people will be, I think my mom told me this when I was like 10, and it's still a life lesson for anybody, that other people will be as okay with things as you are okay. Like the more you own it, they don't care. And it's so true. I was embarrassed. I had an accident when I was a kid where I got some teeth knocked out. And I was like really this is like third grade. And I was really self-conscious about this. I would do this while I was talking all the time so people couldn't see. And my mom, and I think I learned this early on in life, like the more okay you are with those things, everyone else just adopts how you feel about it.
Exactly. My pet monkey, the vet came and he bit the vet and he lost 2 of his teeth, his 2 canines. And he was, for like 2 weeks, he was so upset, he was so insecure, he was covering his mouth. He was literally covering his mouth. Like when he would look at you, he'd like cover his mouth in shame. He'd look down in shame, just covering his teeth.
Wow.
And then one day he woke up and he was okay with it. But my monkey, like a primate, has the same exact instinct, the same insecurities. And whenever a girl's around, you could see the insecurities come up. He tries to act more tough.
Yeah.
When a girl goes away, he acts like a little baby. He's all sweet, loving. Girls around, he starts biting, acting like an ass.
And I think that's one of the big things. I think most women, especially if they grew up in a city, they have this ability to see through people like a motorcycle cop. Like they've seen it all and they've heard it all. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're a different person off camera, like this is the conversation you and I would have with no cameras in the room.
We just turned the camera on. We were already talking.
Yeah, we were already talking. But off camera, like when nobody's looking, it's just you in your house, it's just you and a couple of people. Are you a different person than who you are when you're talking to a woman, or who you are at a job interview or anywhere else in your life? If that's the case, there are signals coming out of your body that are creating a gut feeling in other people. The gut feeling says something's off. They're not profiling experts or anything, but the lower part of our brain are all behavior profiling experts, but they can't speak English. So the lower part of my brain, no ability to send me a text message or speak English, just says something's not right. Something doesn't add up here. I don't feel right about this. Like everybody's had that experience of, I've met this guy, he's super confident, everything looked good, he dressed well, and he smiled and he said all the right things, but something felt off. 9 times out of 10, that's where that's coming from, because someone is different off camera. They have not got, that's the pretending part that we were just talking about. I'm going to pretend my way into showing that I've got my life figured out. I'm going to dress really nice, even though my bathroom counter has 9,000 things on it. I haven't cleaned my toilet, and like nothing is really going well elsewhere, but I'm presenting this front of like I've got my stuff figured out. And I think that is the biggest hurdle, the most, if I could just give one life-changing piece of advice, is change who you are off camera and make who you are when no one's looking exactly the same as who you want to be seen as.
Now, let's say I want to spot that consciously.
Yeah.
What am I looking for?
You're looking for a lot of different things.
Walk me through it. By the way, men and women are different, correct, for this? Or is there a unisex way of profiling?
It's about unisex. Yeah.
Okay, so what am I looking at first? Age or no?
No. So one of the first things, and you and I talk to you about this all the time, when you're like, we're eating lunch or whatever, you're like, hey, who's that? Profile that guy, or all of that. And one of the things I tell you regularly off camera is the first thing that I see in people is, to what degree does this person feel like they are not enough? Like, what are they trying to add on to who they are? Like, are they adding on all kinds of decorations or super loud clothing?
What's like a neck tattoo, for example, mean?
It can mean a million different things, but it's a neck tattoo is obviously for other people to see, because your eyes can't even look down there.
What's the genuine intent from a male usually for a neck tattoo? Is it so he gets more girls?
More girls, or you're thinking of outcome. So I can't predict what somebody's thinking of an outcome, but I can predict what's going on inside. And that stuff that's going on inside is, I alone, and it's this exact phrase, I alone am not enough. I need more. To be okay, I need more. I need to be more.
That gave me an insight. I believe the reason I always want to be better in general, skill set wise, was because my original behavior, which created the habit, I don't believe I have that so much inside of me anymore, that feeling of needing to be enough or that not feeling enough, but I wasn't able to consciously ever address it, I guess.
Yeah.
But the mindset was, oh, I need to be the best because I'm not the best. So how do I become the best? And it was just work harder, be smarter, learn more. Now, when I say I'm the best, I think a lot of people might misinterpret that. If you say you're the best, people might misinterpret that. How would you translate the difference between confidence and arrogance? And then continue with the profile, because I know that's part of profiling.
I could sum that up in the most beautiful way ever, I think.
Okay.
In the most beautiful way I've ever thought about it. Arrogance is about hierarchy and status. Arrogance is all about other people. Confidence is all about what's in here. Like the first time we've known each other for years, but when we first met, it was you called and said, I want to hire Chase for a speaking gig or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, but I searched you up on YouTube, and the first 10 seconds, I was like, oh, this guy's not really confident. He's too young to act that way. Which is a judgment on my part, which is incorrect.
Yeah.
And we started talking on the phone, and it was genuine confidence. Because your confidence is not about hierarchy. Where do I stand with all these people? Am I above them? Am I below them? Are they making me feel small? That's where arrogance comes from. Arrogance comes from all external comparison. Confidence is all inside. And I would say the absolute truest definition of confidence is a willingness to endure social injury. Am I willing to be socially injured?
And do you feel, so when you compared my confidence at 22 to even my confidence now, do you think there's a difference, or do you think it's the same thing? It just, people may not know. Because I'll give you an example. A lot of the people come from your audience. If you go look at the comments on anything that we do together, they're just, it's so funny. The judgments are hysterical. I'm like, if they knew how good of friends we are, they'd probably laugh. But a lot of the comments are like, oh, arrogance, cockiness. And I always found that to be funny. You know, I actually laugh at it. I don't read comments that often, but when I do read the comments, I find them to be funny. Because I'm like, it's just so inaccurate. It can't even touch me. It's like, it's so foreign from what I believe that it doesn't affect me. I wanted your opinion on it.
I think that's the mistake that most people make. Because they're projecting onto you. So they view confidence as hierarchy and status. It's a social pecking order. So they think Marcel's can't be confident unless he views himself as better than other people, because that's their insecurity. Because they're telling themselves, I can't act like that unless I'm better than other people. So what you're seeing is a projection that's inside of their own feelings, their own beliefs about the world. So those things of you being, arrogant or cocky or whatever?
Yeah, arrogant, cocky, narcissistic.
That's a projection. Because that person is telling themselves in the mirror, I can't be that confident unless I am blank. So it's all about status and hierarchy, about other people.
So when you're profiling to see what someone feels when they're not enough, right? Circling back to that.
Yeah.
Versus being enough. How do you when I like to profile versus the regular person, let's say like someone who's not an expert on this, they probably want to profile and see what's important to someone, or kind of like get an idea. Is this person what I want them to be? I want to profile. I kind of want to know what someone's been through. Like I want to be able to predict, hey, have you gone through trauma? What's your job? What's your income? I mean, you've gotten so good at profiling, at least from the time I've been around you. You not only know who someone is, you know what's happened to them, how old they were when it happened, what's happened to them recently, how they've changed, how they used to be. The first thing you told me when we were hanging out, you said, everything about you is authentic except for one thing, and I can't figure it out. I said, what was it? You said your mannerisms. You said you must have changed your mannerisms sometime in the last few years. And I remember after speaking on stage the first time, after speaking on stage the second time, I'd watch the film back of me speaking. And I did this weird thing with my fingers. And I'm like, I don't like that. So I started to practice, keep my hands straight. And I would change the way my mannerisms were. Yeah. And after that, I'm like, how the fuck did he pick up on that? You know? Yeah. And there's just so much you see. Jack is deaf in his left ear.
Yeah.
And you spoke to him for 3 seconds. He's like, hey, nice to meet you. And you said, yeah, my name's Chase, nice to meet you. And he turned his head to the right and looked at your mouth. And you went, you're deaf in one ear, scuba accident? And he just called it in 3 seconds. And we just looked at each other because I told him who you were before. And we were just laughing because it's just so, it's so crazy, the attention to detail. Now that I wear the lens, I could see it's a lot easier to pick up on all these things. Yeah. But in the past, especially someone who's never seen it, it's foreign. So where does someone start? And if they only could look at a few things, what are those things? Because at the end of the day, you don't need to know someone's deaf in one ear. It doesn't benefit you. At least it does if it's your obsession. But I don't think a lot of these people might be obsessed with this. But how do they practically apply this skill set to their outcome?
Yeah, I think, let me go deep on this for 29 seconds here.
Go as long as you want.
For me, it became a process of the more I could see that other people were insecure, they were suffering, they lacked confidence in certain areas of their life, it made me feel human. Like I'm not alone. Like there's other people who feel like maybe I'm not enough. And all of these insecurities that I had, I thought I was alone because everybody with insecurities is like, oh, these other people are doing so well. And it got to the point where I just kind of became a psychological voyeur. I wanted to kind of really see behind the curtains of all these things that I didn't want to.
What motivates someone to see behind the curtains?
That was it for me.
Well, I'll give you an example because when I was younger, I used to think everyone was so rich and everyone was so much better. And I'm like, look, if I'm this good at this age, how good are they at 50 or 40? I'm like, they must be so good I can't even comprehend it, right? And then
you meet them.
Then you realize you're better than they are a year ago. And you're like, what the fuck? You know, what's going on? A lot of my idols, people I used to look up to, I was quite disappointed when I saw them. And you're the exception to that, I would say.
Thank you.
But it's because even from 3.5 years ago, you've significantly improved. And you were already exceptional, you know. So to me, it's like, well, you either keep improving or you don't. Because imagine you stopped improving 3 years ago. Well, you got someone like me, I'm sure there are other people who are hungry like I am, and they're coming for you, you know, they're coming for that. So yeah, I think that if you don't keep getting better, there's always going to be someone who wants it more or wants it better. And why is it important for you to know the most? It's
not important for me to be the best either.
So where does that come from?
I'm rated the #1 in behavior, body language stuff, but that's never important to me. I want to be more obsessed, and I'm measuring myself against me. Like, am I more obsessed with this than Marcel?
So why did that make you the best, though? What made you the best? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because when you look at Michael Jordan or Kobe or anyone who's super successful, they are the best at what they do. That's the #1 thing I notice for people who have the most success in the area.
Right.
They become the best at it. The best lawyer gets paid the most. The best doctor gets paid the most.
Yeah.
So what made you? I know you're not obsessed with being the best. What made you become the best?
I think it was obsession.
With the craft, with the skill?
With the results of me being able to see behind the curtain. I can see stuff that I'm not supposed to see. And that felt next level to me. Because I got to, when I first started it, I learned like 10 body language tricks, some basic stuff. But it was like a gateway drug for me. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not supposed to be able to see this person's insecurities and fears and self-doubt and all this stuff and suffering. Suffering was the biggest thing of all. They're hiding the suffering from me, but I can see it. And that was the gateway for me. That's what got me obsessed with it. And I wanted to see more and more and more. And then it became, I rose up as a leader in the military, and I thought that this is how the best leaders are doing this on accident. And I can choose to do this leadership thing and understand people on purpose instead of on accident.
And when you do it on purpose and you see someone suffering, what are you seeing? Someone could be smiling,
Yeah.
Someone could look like they're happy. They could be laughing. Robin Williams, for example,
Yep.
Award-winning award-winning actor, won so many Oscars, super happy, comedian, genuine human being, killed himself.
Yeah.
Well, how do you see that? Could you see that coming?
Yeah.
How?
I think you can see it coming in a lot of people.
What are you looking for?
I think the top two things are, number one, a person gradually loses purpose.
How do you know he's losing purpose?
They're less passionate. Their facial expressions are less passionate when they talk about their work, when they talk about what they're doing, when they talk about the results they get from their work, even the money. Everything is less passionate. The second piece of that is they withdraw socially. So even if they're at a party, they're in a tuxedo or something, remember we talked about this connection behavior of the eyebrow flash, the nodding, the matching facial expressions. That starts to go away, the sense of purpose, and then they feel no connection to other people anymore. They're starting to isolate. And this doesn't have to be physical isolation. I'm not like going to buy an apartment building or like go hide in a hole.
Just be emotional.
Yeah, so it's emotional isolation. So that I'm not seeing mirrored facial expressions. I'm not seeing excitement when I'm excited. Even the people that are my friends, your friends are not seeing those expressions on the face anymore. Those are the two biggest indicators of all time.
And do you think that someone who knew, because a lot of the time, and this is something I've noticed, is you'll talk to someone who says, I just can't get the result, whether it's losing weight, whether it's dating, whether it's business. And if you spend enough time with them, it becomes quite apparent why they're not getting the result. It's actually crystal clear.
Yeah.
When you look at someone like Robin Williams, at least the perception of how he's painted in the media, everyone is shocked. It cannot understand how he did that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that what was behind the camera almost all the time would have clearly indicated that that's the direction he was heading in?
Absolutely.
And
this happened to me a week ago. One of my friends committed suicide a week ago. Andrew McDermott is his name. And those same indicators happened. And
what were the indicators?
The same indicators of a loss of purpose and meaning and a gradual isolation.
What does it look like?
It's exactly what we talked about.
How do you know today's the day?
We don't.
How do you know today's the week? Or are you getting close?
Those two things starting to increase. And is there matching facial expressions on friends and family? Like, do they still tune in and check into friends and family, or are they withdrawn around friends and family?
What do you think the intention behind committing suicide is?
It's escape.
Is it escape or is it revenge?
I think most of the time it's escape. In rare circumstances, it could be somebody who is succeeded in life through winning arguments, and when they can't win one, that becomes the ultimate.
And why do you think 99% of them regret it if they survive?
Just because there's nothing that can compare to just living life and getting back into it. And I think that they regret it because they realize that there's people that love them, and they realize that love, just like we talked about Interstellar last night for 2 hours. And
it's our favorite film, by the way. So
mine too.
Yeah.
And that's it. They realize that love transcends all of that stuff, and they finally see that there's people in their life that kind of start bringing back some of that purpose and meaning. And I think that some of that comes back after they get the compassion that was missing in their life because of the attempt.
I have a theory about that behavior, and I want your thoughts on it.
All right.
It's a bit different than what your thoughts are on it. My theory is that, for example, when you're a baby, you get rewarded for crying. You're rewarded for being sad. And as you develop older, you either develop more emotional intelligence, which is the ability to, this doesn't work anymore, let's evolve into new strategies and new patterns of behavior.
Right.
Or you result to the victim mentality, and you're quite a selfish individual. And over time, you try to be sad and depressed. You don't get rewarded. You alternate between that and being angry at the world, and then that and being angry at the world. And in a fit of rage / insane amounts of wanting attention and love, kind of oscillating between those two thought patterns, you decide to do the unthinkable, and you commit suicide or attempt suicide, which is why the majority of people who go to kill themselves aren't successful. Majority of suicide attempts don't work, because if you really want to kill yourself and they found you on your bed with overdose, well, why don't you just take a gun and put it in your mouth, right? That example
Right.
would end it. Why don't you jump off a 20-story building? Because they didn't really quite want to do it. I feel like the few cases that do want to do it, really, really want to do it, probably do want to escape. But what would you say about the majority who attempt? Some succeed and didn't really want it to happen. They wanted someone to come save them, but didn't think it through.
Yeah.
What would you say your perspective is on this? Because this is what I've been...
I agree with that. So the attempt versus the act, the completed act, are two different things. I think you're absolutely right about the attempt.
Because I think a lot of people are like, they categorize it all as one thing, but the truth is, I've attempted suicide 3 times. What does that mean? What does that even mean?
Right.
You know, like, I just, to me, I hate that behavior more than any other behavior. I have spite for that individual. I have spite for that kind of thought process. I have spite for that kind of extreme act, because it's the most selfish. I had an ex-girlfriend. I ever tell you this? I had an ex-girlfriend try and kill herself in front of me.
No.
So I was dating this girl, and we're at her house. She's taking Zoloft, antidepressant, and she goes into the bathroom, and she takes like 24 pills. But we don't know. Me and her mom don't know she takes 24 pills. She starts, 5-10 minutes go by, she starts looking extremely angry and starts having weird expressions on her face. And her mom goes, "What did you just do in the bathroom?" And it clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, she did something. Like, maybe I'm thinking she's just doing drugs. I didn't think she's, overdosing on this. Anyways, her mom's like,
What'd she take?
Zoloft. 24 pills.
Okay.
I don't know how much of an overdose that is. I mean, you could probably break down the science of this. And she's like fearful. She doesn't want to die. She's hallucinating. Her mom's forcing her to throw it all up. And then her mom's like, hey, make her go to the steam room, my house. So we all went to my house, and she's in the steam room sweating out everything for like 2 hours. I don't know why she just didn't go to the ER. And as soon as it ended, her mom didn't want to take her to the ER. I guess she didn't have medical insurance or something. I don't know. It didn't really comprehend the whole situation until afterwards. Yeah. After that ended, I'm like, I'm not going to be with this person. I broke up with her on the spot. And I was just like, yeah, I don't want to be with you. But that to me was the first time I ever saw someone do this. And I realized, if I didn't catch it and her mom didn't catch it, I don't know if she would have died or not, but it seems like that would have probably been a pretty fatal dosage. Yeah. What does Zoloft do? Like an antidepressant like that?
I think it's an SSRI. I think it's in the SSRI class.
I'm unsure.
If I'm right. And SSRI, I think it's like a Wellbutrin.
Serotonin.
Yeah.
It's a serotonin.
And Wellbutrin would be the other one, which is a selective norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So Zoloft, I think it's an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
That's exactly what it is. I remember reading it.
Okay, so it prevents the vesicles in I'm trying to think of how to explain this simply. So if you have 2 neurons here, right, and this neuron has a bunch of little water balloons in it that are full of little serotonin balls. Then it pops this water balloon, sends a bunch of serotonin here to absorb into this next neuron here. Those little serotonin balls will fall into a bunch of holes in this neuron, a little receptor site, so 5-HT2 receptors. But a bunch of those balls will bounce out and just kind of stay here in this little space called the synapse. And serotonin reuptake is where this neuron up here says, oh, you didn't accept all those balls from these water balloons. I'm going to suck them back up and make new water balloons out of them. So Zoloft stops that from completing that process and leaves that inside of the synapse so that it continues to get absorbed. So it's not necessarily increasing the levels of serotonin. It's increasing how much is inside of what's called the extracellular space to be absorbed inside of those 5-HT2 receptors.
And why would that kill someone?
It might. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would, because I don't know. I'm not well versed on the pharmacology of Zoloft at all. I may have been wrong about this whole description.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I brought that up to you is because we're in LA, and it's like everyone in LA knows someone who's tried to kill themselves. Everyone in LA knows someone who's attempted something like this. So when you see, because there's a lot of piece of shits, like, to be quite frank, there's a lot of people I don't want to be around. I have a pretty tight-knit circle. Everyone around me is pretty genuine. I mean, you're a profiler, what would you say? Yeah. The majority of people around me, right? They're good people. How do you surround yourself with better people? Let's say you live in LA, or you live in New York, or Miami, or Toronto, or a massive city. How would you know who you should best surround yourself with? And how does it differ from culture to culture? Like European culture, Latin American culture.
Yeah. I think it would be the same in all cultures. What I would say is, like, when you're meeting somebody, go through that process in your head of like, what is indicating to me on this person of them not feeling like they're enough. And if I ask them about that, are they honest? Will they tell me that they're doing this because, you know, they feel insecurity or they feel anxiety? Or will they be honest and not just like go hard on wearing this costume?
And if they go hard on the costume, what does it tell you?
I'm allergic to those human beings.
So what does that tell you, though?
They are not enough, and they probably believe their costume if they're going that hard on it. They know that there's a real version of themselves down there somewhere, but it's so conflicting with what they believe in everyday life. Like, I want to put this image forward. So we have cognitive dissonance is what that's called. It's mental, actual pain that our brain experiences when something in real life is confronting something that I'm trying to conceal or something that I have hidden shame about. I'm hiding some kind of shame. I would say that the best way to do that is to teach yourself to become absolutely allergic to people wearing a costume or having some kind of falseness about them. So if you see somebody that you think they're wearing a costume, you right away kind of ask them a couple of questions and see how authentic they are, and maybe admit something on your own to see if they'll do something similar, which is called informational altruism. And maybe just say, like, I used to be really closed off. I used to have all this social anxiety. I couldn't talk to people. And see if somebody else would kind of resonate with that and match what you're
I used to
saying.
piss the bed till 5th grade. I was wearing diapers till 5th grade to sleep, you know? But
Yeah.
I don't really care. There's no insecurity around it. I feel like, you know, what you're saying about being allergic to it is very, very, very true. And some people think I'm a bit direct in my behavior. But if I see someone who's even slightly incongruent or a liar, they lie to me about who they are, nothing infuriates me more than that behavior. That's why I'm so obsessed with deception. That's why our first podcast in 2021 was about deception.
Yeah.
Because my biggest obsession was to see who in front of me is real and who is not. And I think a lot of people don't know this, but you are the same on camera as you are in person. And if anything, you're just funnier and more goofy and, you know, maybe a little bit less professional at times.
A little more profanity off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you are the same human being, the same genuine. If anything, you're more generous and you're more caring than you show online. You know?
Yeah.
People don't even know. So I can't stand ingenuine people. Like, I'm allergic. The same way you are, I am allergic to being around someone ingenuine. That's why I'm so obsessed with figuring out deception. Now, let me ask you this. If you look at, there's a whole pandemic happening now, right? In terms of kind of careers. What are your thoughts on porn or on OnlyFans or on stripping or on sexualized careers? Obviously, it's one of the oldest careers that goes back to biblical times, thousands and thousands of years ago. But what are your thoughts on that? Without cultural, influence.
Yeah, let's get into like the neuroscience of this really quick.
Okay.
I think 99.9% of people, if they produced a map of where the sources of their dopamine is coming from, they would be ashamed to show it to people. And if you sat down today, and because I do this with all my clients, let's get a blank piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. I'm going to draw a circle right there in the center, kind of like a basketball court, right? I'm going to put me right there in the middle, and I'm going to put my positive sources of dopamine. I'm going to put my family, going on walks, running, going to the gym, cooking, baking, feeding the dogs, whatever. And on this other side, I'm going to put like cigarettes and alcohol and pornography and all this other stuff. And then put percentages. And that's the trick. You want to add everything up to 100. What's the percentage of each one? And I think most people, or a lot of people, might be really ashamed of where their dopamine's coming from. So one thing that we've done over the last 70 years since advertising has gotten to be such a major industry is we have, number one, we institutionalize shame. And I want that phrase to be burned into everybody's head listening. I hope I could do that. I wish I could do that. Shame has been institutionalized to where I can drive your behavior just using shame because of cognitive dissonance, like we just talked about.
So
I can make you do anything.
Like not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
You should feel shame for it.
Yeah.
Do you think shame is an emotion I experience often or almost at all?
No.
Why?
I think you have that zoom out thing that we talked about with Google Maps. So this is the way I explained it to Marcel just a few minutes ago before we started filming. We were in the kitchen, and I just explained it to you. Like most people, when they have a problem in their life, they'll zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in on that problem towards like 1 pixel on Google Maps, and that's all they can see. Your brain does the opposite. Like you pinch out and pinch out and pinch out until the planet Earth is like this big on the screen, and you can't even see the pixel anymore. It's gone. So I think that's one of the amazing traits about you is that you have that ability to kind of zoom out and shift camera angle.
Is that cognitive dissonance though? Is that just ignoring the problem?
No.
So what's the difference between ignoring the problem and doing that?
It's the problem. You're still very aware of the problem, but your perspective changes, how you're viewing it. You're not choosing not to see it. It's still there on the screen, but you're forcing your brain to see a bigger picture, a greater perspective. The other 2 reasons are, with this marketing thing we're talking about, is advertising and marketing have secretly programmed people, and I'm telling you, so many smart people that I talk to think that they're immune to this, which is bizarre to me. It's like your brain is no match for a $1 trillion computer. It's no match. And this is why you and I both don't spend a lot of time on social media. It's so toxic. But what they've done with advertising and marketing, and this is not some plan where people sat around some conference table in a dark room smoking cigars like let's control the nation. It's evolved. So advertising and marketing have 2 main goals on top of this institutionalized shame. Number 1 is to convince you that you're not enough yet. I'm not enough yet. And number 2 is to get you to compare yourself to other people. And that's forcing separation. So I'm separate from you, I'm separate from all these people. And separation, if you take it to the extreme of me being this one little island, everyone else is different.
Rejection.
That's psychopath. I'm a full-blown psychopath at that point. I'm absolutely separate, and nothing else matters outside of me.
So it creates narcissism,
Mm-hmm.
and narcissism includes emotions of shame, embarrassment, insecurity, not being enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't perceive that because on the mask of narcissism, you would say that narcissism appears to be my life is perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm great. So a lot of people are trying to show. There's a great quote. NF, he's a rapper. I don't know if you know him. He's not like a ghetto rapper. I actually like his music quite a bit. And he goes, most people would rather look big than be big. You know? And another quote he has is, if money is where you find happiness, you'll always be poor. You know, so he says a lot of things about meaning and depth and how he became famous, and he's around all these people, and he's like, I'd rather not be at the Oscars or the Grammys. I don't care about any of that. You know, I want a life full of meaning. And he's talking about how it's all superficial. Yeah. And it kind of highlights it, and he's been highlighting it, you know, since like 2017, 2018. Now, what's your thoughts on how to fix it, if there is a way to fix it?
It's doing what you did in the shopping mall that you talked about. It's exposing yourself to social pain, and I'm open to being me at the cost of what? And if you have a cost, then you're for sale.
I like it. I mean, guys, I know the podcast kind of went in different directions, and there were a lot of loops we left open because they were just moving. And some of you are going to be really annoyed having watched this. Some of you are not. If you're interested in watching Chase's stuff, go check out his YouTube channel. I'll link it below. He's awesome. And
Thanks.
I mean, he's, like I said, my favorite fucking person ever. So every time I have him on the podcast, we'll do it. If this podcast gets 1,000 likes over the next couple months, I'll bring Chase on for a part 2, and we'll keep it more structured. I'll write down more questions. I feel like your audience, I already know what they're going to say. So those of you that commented and watched till the end, let me just clarify what you probably said in the comments. You said, Marcel interrupted Chase a lot. He did good at the beginning, but then interrupted him a lot at the second part. and he's arrogant, and he thinks he knows it all, and I should let Chase talk more. I want to hear Chase talk more. If you're my audience, you just had a good time because you know how I am. But Chase's audience, some of you I like. Other ones, I don't know. I mean, they're pretty rude, some of them.
Yeah. If you're my audience and you're watching Marcel right now, you need to be understanding that for you to judge Marcel means that I'm a fool.
I like that. That was, that was funny. Subscribe. We'll see you later.
See ya.